All right. Welcome to another episode of Unfiltered Fridays. And I'm super excited to have my friend Britt Ramsey on the show today. We were just talking about some things offline, and I was like, no, wait, we're going to hit record. We're going to talk about this stuff on the podcast because that's the whole point, is these unfiltered conversations that often happen behind the scenes that I want to share with the world, because that's where I think the real magic happens, is in those kind of like one-off conversations where we're sharing our vulnerability and our fears and our struggles, because everybody else has them too. And if we just talk about it more, then when you're in that moment of you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing, you realize you're not alone. And quite honestly, often we do not know what we're doing. It's funny because I saw a meme, and this was several years ago when I was working a corporate job in sales, is like, if you're an adult, all you really do is just Google things all day long. Like, that's the true sign of you're an adult. You just Google it. And I'm like, God, what did people do before they could Google
My
it?
life as a new mom. Yes.
Yes.
Just like Googling everything.
Yes, parenting for sure. And I was telling my husband this, we were talking about it, and I was like, what did people do before they could Google it? And it was like, well, they just didn't know. They just walked around not knowing.
They just didn't know. Or there was books that I think you had to literally like drive to the library and get a book out and then research it.
Yes. Yes. So Britt is a career coach, and she and I connected inside of a mastermind a couple years ago and have reconnected as she's joined our mastermind alumni community. I'm super excited to have her back. And she's a brand new mom. She's in the middle of getting ready to move across the country, plus working her business, plus working a corporate job. So the girl is totally juggling it all. And so before we get into the conversation about what we're going to talk about today, about like progress in your business and planting seeds and watering them, I just want to hear from you kind of like, what the heck, all those things at once. How are you doing? Are you okay?
When you put it that way, thank you. I don't feel like I'm juggling any of it well. I feel like I'm trying to juggle and everything's falling. But honestly, I've tried to approach life is in our pocket, like not even kidding. I'm like, let me see how the next hour goes. I will get back to you. Let me see how this hour goes, because I used to think so far ahead and and yes, even though we're like moving, I'm like, I can't even get there yet. I just need to take hour by hour at this point. So every hour is different. I feel like what's helped though is surrounding myself with amazing women. So like a business mastermind, or leaning into moms at work and asking for help, because in the beginning, like 3 weeks in, which if you've had a child is like, you don't even know who you are in those 3 weeks. Those first 3 to 4 weeks, I was very stubborn in asking for help, because I was like, I'm going to do this. We will be fine. Just me and my husband. And it's like, no, I need to ask for help. And that's everything. That's guidance on my business. That's emotionally, that's even just doing physical things. Like, yes, my husband can help clean the bottles. I don't have to do all of that. So, to answer your question, like I said, every moment is different, but I think what really helps push me through is gratitude. I'm really grateful that I'm healthy, my baby's healthy, and the rest is all kind of icing on top, honestly.
Yeah,
so that's kind of my approach. Yeah.
Well, and that's so interesting that you said that about asking for help and feeling like in those early moments of being a new mom, like, I have to do it all. Like we do. We all do. We have this like unrealistic expectation of ourselves of like, I'm going to be superwoman and supermom. And like, maybe you will someday, but like you just gave birth. Your body is still recovering. Your brain has completely changed. Your identity has just completely changed. And processing all of that is a lot. But like, I get it. And I quite honestly think, and I'm now a mom 8 years in, but I can look back and think like, this is probably why so many people do, have postpartum issues, because we have this unrealistic expectation. And then we're afraid to say, oh, not everything is perfect. Right?
And especially the identity thing. I'm in this stage right now that's very gray, in the sense that I am a new mom. I have like a business, but I'm also about to go back to work, and I'm trying to figure out who that is. Am I going back full time? Like, there's a lot of things I'm thinking about right now. Do I lean more into my business and flexibility? So it's all these different levels and layers you're trying to figure out, but nothing is fitting perfectly together yet. Like, it's going to be this kind of endless puzzle that I'm going to still try to piece together. And I'm sure 8 years in, you're still trying to do that. But no one really talks about that, like the identity piece, you know, like I think people are like, oh, you're not going to have sleep or like these types of things. But it's like, oh no, there's this like heavy questioning around, yeah, who am I as a mom, a woman, a career woman? I don't know those answers yet. Yeah. And so I think getting comfortable with just like, I'm figuring it out is what my answer is for today. And I have to be comfortable with that. And me talking out loud is helping me.
I'm curious, how long were you and your husband married before you had a baby?
It'll be 9 years in October. So we took a lot of time. Yeah. A part of that was like we were having fertility issues, but like I would say we waited a good 6 to 7 years to start like trying.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of just travel and moving around. Yeah. So we waited.
And I think that's for moms who do wait longer, because I was in a similar boat. I didn't have my son until I was 33. I got married at 24. So we were married a long time before we had a baby. And I remember when I had a baby, it was like, okay, I looked around the world and I saw all the Pinterest moms, like perfect Pinterest moms. But then I realized that like those moms didn't work. And I was like, okay, I get it. Like I work, I have a full-time job. I want to work. I've always wanted to work. I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom, but I also want to be the Pinterest mom. And then I was like, wait, that's not actually possible to do both. And so then it was like, okay, but so then what is my identity as a mom? What is my identity as a person? Because you are just trying to like figure out all of these things, because literally overnight, your identity has changed.
Yes, it's overnight. And I wish there was something to like let that sink in even sooner. Is like, it will be overnight, because it is. You go in, you have this baby, and then you come out and you're like, oh, okay. So it's a learning process. Like I said, I'm grateful for it. And you know, next week you could ask me and it could be a different answer. But today,
that's where you're at today.
We're here. Yeah.
And it's funny, you know, you said something about, well, before we hit record, I said I wanted to talk about that you had mentioned something in a Voxer message thread we were on in our mastermind about planting seeds and realizing that watering those seeds and nurturing relationships with clients, that like it could take 3-4 years and you don't even realize you're doing it. And I think there's very similar parallels in parenting. And that like you're starting to teach your child things when they're a newborn, a toddler, an elementary school age child, and you might not see them actually get it for 3 or 4 years or longer. But as a parent, you're not going to be like, well, never mind. I just give up. I'm just not going to teach you gratitude. I'm just not going to teach you to be kind because you just don't get it. So I give up. And in our business, we often like just give up because we don't get instant results.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to kind of expand on that a little bit more, and like the experience you had where somebody reached out to you years after they had started following you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I started my business in 2020 around career coaching, specifically for helping women that are kind of in that moment of feeling just stuck and unfulfilled. And obviously during the pandemic, this was really prevalent, right? People were really like, oh, what's my purpose at work? I want something more fulfilling. And this is when that kind of all started. So in 2020, I did a lot of workshops with students actually. And this was one at Penn State. And again, I just showed up and I started talking. I honestly couldn't tell you the topic. I'm thinking it was around, you know, personal branding and interviewing, or something that's typically what I love talking about to help especially students feel prepared, you know, to go into the world. And so didn't think anything of it. And then I got a message on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is one of my, again, main avenues where I'm showing up all the time because it's careers. And I got a message from an individual, and she referenced when I spoke at Penn State, and she wanted to work with me now because now she had graduated and she's a couple of years into her career, and really again at that stuck point where it's like, where do I grow? How do I grow? And she seriously is, I'm not kidding, my ideal client. She's been amazing to work with because we're really cultivating herself as, a female in the workplace and her brand and how to show up and grow. And I would have never guessed 3 years ago that, a random workshop would have turned into a 3-year, and I think it's because I built that trust, and then she was consistently seeing my LinkedIn content. So think about it, for 3 years. And it was such a moment that I was like, okay, every day when I'm showing up and I don't want to, or I'm doubting myself, I have imposter syndrome. Should I really be giving, all these things that are in our mind, you realize like, wow, it actually had an impact on an individual. And that was just one. And there's more, that are starting to kind of come to the surface and grow. So it really was a moment for me that's like, keep showing up, because we often forget that.
Yeah, that's such a powerful reminder. And I think in the early years of our business, we're often like, we're trying to figure it out. Like, what's the offer that's going to stick? What's the messaging? Who is my ideal client? Like, we're just trying things. And we often don't see the results we want immediately or right away. And we think like, well, this doesn't work. Well, it's not that it doesn't work. Maybe it isn't working yet. And so how do you keep nurturing those seeds that you have planted? And I think about that in my own business. I launched 3 offers in the last 4 months. Like, whoa, hold on.
That's a lot.
Like I actually came up with 3 brand new offers, created sales pages and marketing plans and launch plans for 3 separate offers. And so when I beat myself up, and you guys can go back and listen to the flopped launch podcast episode a few episodes back, but when I realized like, it's not that they failed, it's that I planted seeds and they haven't grown yet. And it's about continuing to nurture those seeds and continuing to use the marketing funnel of attract, nurture, and convert, and trust that the results will come, but just keep showing up, like you said.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you bring up a good point about, it is timing, and it's timing for your client as well. I think about some of the, how many times I had to see something to buy, how many times I had to see, and really think about working with a coach. And when you put yourself in the shoes of the client, you're like, wow, it did take me 8 to 10 times to see and hear. So for me, putting a launch out once, that, didn't really hear much back. Yeah. It's like, okay, keep trying and showing up, but it's so hard in that moment. And I think it's like, this is where the, being resilient as a business owner is truly the key. I think that differentiates those that keep going and get to those, pivotal moments, and those that give up. And it's really about like digging deep and believing in yourself, because if you don't, then why should other people believe in this product? And it's not easy. Like, I've had so many things where I've put out certain content or freebies or workshops, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Like, I really thought this was going to be it, and I think sometimes we look for these moments that are going to be it, but it's like, it's not that it's one thing. It's going to sometimes be slow and gradual. And then when you least expect it, I feel like it's like compared to meeting like your husband or soulmate, honestly, right?
Yeah.
Because like you go through all these, I dated like, terrible, awful men half the time. And you're like, oh my gosh, when is it going to happen? And then when you least expect it, it does.
Yeah.
It's
When you're like, you know what?
similar.
I'm fine with being single. Like, it's fine. Being single is fun. And then it's like, oh, wait, there's the person I was looking for.
Right.
Now that I stopped looking. Yeah. No. And it's, what you said too about like the comparison, because people don't talk about the struggle and the time it takes. We see in the highlight reel of like, oh, I had a $10,000 day. I had a 6-figure launch. Like, I actually remember listening to a Jenna Kutcher podcast several years ago, and she talked about how she had a $10,000 day without doing any work. And I was like, be quiet, because you've been doing the things for years, and you have a team now that helps you do the things. So don't sell this like fake dream to people, and then they beat themselves up because they didn't get the same results. Well,
Yeah.
it's not the entire journey like that you're sharing when you share that one hack. And it's like, it's never just one thing. It's all
Yeah.
the things added up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that reminder too. So I think you bring up a good point about it's really important that when you have a business that you are surrounding yourself with the motivation that you need, because that might be motivating for some other people, like to see that. Me, no. Like I would have the same reaction as you. I would be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing all these, and then I go down this spiral and I'm like, I don't have a team. I'm never going to have a team, blah, blah, blah. So what I've had to really do in the last few years is put my blinders on it when I need them and take them off when I need to be inspired. So I need to kind of keep this kind of focus of like, okay, this is going to be going on the sidelines. In the career space, there's so much competition of like, I'm the best at resumes and I do this and this. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should do this. And then I'm like, wait, come back to my core of why I started this. And I think we all need that reminder a lot of times is like, whatever you need to bring you back into that core, you need to do that, because otherwise, if you are constantly looking and comparing, that's where you are going to likely want to give up. And so I feel like I've had to do that more recently, as like, I've gotten a little better now as a mom where I only have chunks of time and I'm like, okay, don't even worry about what XYZ person is doing. Focus now on like what works for me. Because I think that's a good point to bring up. If you're surrounding yourself with comparing all day, that's a really tough place to be in a business.
Yeah. And you said something earlier about resiliency, and it made me think about also as a mom, like I'm reading Dr. Becky Kennedy's book right now. It's called Good Inside. Totally great Instagram follow. But the book that she's talking in the book about, it's not our core job to teach our kids to be happy or to help them be happy, but to help them be resilient. And
I love that.
I actually was thinking about this because I talk a lot about a growth mindset, and I was journaling about this like literally just this morning about like, okay, I have a growth mindset as long as I get the results that I want, which is not the point of the growth mindset. The point of the growth mindset is that you keep doing the work and you keep trying, and that when you don't get the results that you want, that you learn from it, that you keep going. And that's the resiliency that is challenging, right?
Yeah. And it's so funny. Like, I'm resilient. The word I wrote down last week, because I'm doing like the word journaling where like you pick a word of the week. Mine was resilient.
Yeah.
And I think it was just like, I needed it in that moment. But you're right in that sense. Like, it's not necessarily about being perfect and happy. It's like, let's kind of dig deep and keep moving. It's funny, I did a workshop on resiliency. Again, I think it was during the pandemic. And I always go back to the definition of being resilient is to like be able to actually keep moving forward during that rough time with actions and not just like sitting with it and stuck. And I think that, to me, to just keep reminding ourselves that like keep moving forward, even if it's heavy, it is important. And you're right. Like, I definitely want to teach my son that, because even right now, like we're moving 2,000 miles across country, and I'm like, I want him to look back and realize like that he was resilient through all of this, like he made it through. And it's those little moments of teaching that are important for our kids, and then for us too. Like, I'm learning so much,
Yeah. And when you have those small pockets of time and you're balancing so many things, it can feel like, sometimes it feels like you're not taking action because you're not taking massive action. So I think it's awesome to like recognize yourself and be like, okay, what is the one small thing that I can do in this hour? What is the one thing I can do in this 30 minutes? And sometimes that thing is rest. Sometimes that thing is reflect. Because when we go, and we don't even give ourselves that chance to rest and reflect, like, we're not really being resilient. We're just being the Energizer Bunny, right?
Yes. Yeah. And thank you for reminding me of that, honestly, because I feel like the last, like, probably few weeks. So he's almost 16 weeks. And I feel like in the last few weeks, I've gotten like more of a cadence of like, okay, I have time, let me do this. I have time, let me do this. And all of a sudden, like recently, I'm like, I have time, let me just let me just write. And it doesn't mean that I'm failing or I need to remind myself. And I think we all do, is like, you're not disappointing yourself in your business if you just need that time, or to even talk to someone. Like, even this moment when I have had 30 minutes, I'm like, I can't wait to connect with Ruthie, because talking to other women that are, you know, business owners as well, it's those moments where you're like, let me just talk to someone.
Yeah.
And so I think all those pieces together are really important, and have helped me, going back to what you asked me in the beginning, is like to be okay.
Well, and that's the power of connectedness and community. And like, that was the whole reason that this summer, even though it was like, oh, I have way more things on my to-do list than I can actually get to, let's add a second podcast. But the whole point was to have community and connectedness, because that is so powerful. And I'm curious, because I know LinkedIn is kind of your main platform.
Yeah.
How have you found connection on LinkedIn, and what has that done for you as in terms of your business, your career, and even just your overall like happiness and community?
Yeah, it's a really good point. So on LinkedIn, I feel like there's definitely a lot of people out there. I have a lot of followers. So of course there's people messaging me and, you know, kind of the top funnel. Mm-hmm. Then there's individuals where we've connected on a deeper level, as, again, either female coaches, or we're really passionate about helping women. Mm-hmm. And so it's these moments where, I guess my point is there's going to be these moments where you can either lean into that conversation and be curious, or you can just keep going on with your day. And I like to lean in, and I like to like ask questions. And I think, to me, our gut instinct is really powerful. And sometimes you just know. Like, I think, Ruthie, one of the first times we met, I'm just like, I'm going to be, like, we're going to be in each other's lives for a while, because you just know. And so I think when you're part of a bigger community, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, yes, there's going to be a lot of noise and kind of high level conversations, but then allow some of those to fall through the funnel of like more and be more authentic. And so through that, I have met some amazing women, a few on Instagram as well, where we've paired up and we've created workshops. So I think it's like this commonality, trusting your instinct. And like you said, when you just feel like you have that connectedness, lean into it, ask questions, also add value. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important. Is I try to show up and kind of think, if I have a question for you and I want to partner with you, how can I also add value? Mm-hmm. And that's really powerful, like, relationship. But it's never going to be perfect. And I think, so Brene Brown says this one thing about relationships, and they're never 50-50. Sometimes you're at 80%. You can give more. I can't, maybe give much in this certain week. So I think when you find other women in your network that get that and are like, look, I'm going to be here for you. You need to be like, that's really amazing, because it provides, again, like a strong relationship, through. So I will say, like, I'm really grateful for listening to my instinct and leaning into some of those relationships. And some of them have been going for 3 years. Some, by the way, I've met in person. Some I've never met. Yeah. And it's so interesting to have like this group of individuals that we've never met. And I think it's a whole different relationship in our lives now, right? It's like this virtual relationship where I might never meet them in person. Mm-hmm. But they're just amazing coaches that, we've connected. So yeah, long-winded answer, but I'm really passionate about like connectedness, because to me, it's what keeps, again, me going through those tough moments.
And I think we can sometimes say like, social media, it's so draining or it's all bad. But like, if you go into it with the curiosity mindset and what value can I deliver? What value can I add? And I think it's really important what you said about like, you trust your gut. Like, there's going to be people that you come across that you're like, this is a cool person. I want this person to be my friend. They're going to be in my life. And you engage with them. And you're not like a weirdo about it, but like relationship will naturally happen. And then you find yourself saying things like, my friend so-and-so said such and such. And you're like, well, my friends I've never actually met, my friend on Instagram, my friend on LinkedIn, like, but they're your friend. They have become your friend. And I think that's a cool thing that we can celebrate about social media, because we wouldn't meet those people otherwise. Like I'm thinking
Yeah.
about somebody who I connected with on Instagram, who she's a marketing agency owner who lives in Iowa. Like one of my favorite people who I've had podcast interviews with, love her content, love following her, love DMing her. I never would have met her if it weren't
Yeah.
for the internet.
Absolutely. And I think one last reminder is like we can't be everything to everyone. So I think we need to realize that. Like I'm not going to connect with every career coach out there because we're not going to find some commonalities, or I'm not going to connect with. And I think when you realize that, it takes, at least for me, I'm like, that's okay. But the people I do connect with, I really, really want to value that. And to me, those like, handful of kind of close to my network have been really powerful versus trying to connect with everyone, because I get questions a lot about networking, and I always tell people like it's a long game, have patience, but also it's like the quality over quantity. And that's a strong reminder on a social media platform that is so immense and connects you to millions. It's overwhelming. So take that step back and kind of just say like, who can I lean into to provide like that quality relationship?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We could have a whole nother part 2 conversation about that. Like networking.
Yeah.
You're right. Because it
Yes.
can be really overwhelming. And because it's a long game, I know I get in the like trap of, well, because it takes longer, I should just spend more time on it. So then I'll get the results faster. But like, no, that's not actually true.
No. Yeah.
Then you'll just be spending all of your time networking and then not doing the nurturing and the converting, because you
Yes.
got to do all of those things.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle, but yes, it's about being patient with it, because yeah, you can't just all of a sudden be like, hey Ruthie, okay, we're going to be best friends now and we're going to partner together and all this stuff. It's like, just kind of let things move at the pace it needs to.
Organically happen. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, this was a really fun conversation, and I think you're
I
right. You and I could
know.
probably talk for hours, but
Yeah.
you got stuff to do. I got stuff to do. It's so funny. If you guys are watching on YouTube, I'm sure you saw, but if you're listening, Noah has been in my office twice now. He says his tummy hurts, probably because he's eaten 18 popsicles today. So we both have to get back to mom life. But thank you, Brittany, so much for being
Thank you
here.
for having me, Ruthie. It was so good chatting with
Yes.
you.